most of the time we have seen that the cadre officers, means the top bureaucrats, they had to work under the pressure of the local politician. And if they don't do so, if they fail to do so, if they revolt against this, and if they try to follow the rule of the land, we have most of this time and again we have seen that they are transferred for not following the orders of the local politicians. So, what do you think? Is there any solution to such a kind of problem? Before a few years, Honorable Supreme Court has given a judgment in this regard when some officers were transferred repeatedly. I guess it was Mr. Khemka who was transferred repeatedly, multiple times. So, considering that as the point, somebody filed a case and the Supreme Court, a constitution bench of the Supreme Court gave an order where they said that such a cadre officers, high-level officers, cannot be transferred or removed from the duty. Once they are appointed, they will stay there for at least 2 years. That's what the order says. Though they have added certain thing in that particular order that unless they are retired or they are promoted or they are sent for deputation to other state or for training for more than 2 months especially, and they can be transferred only with the recommendation of the service selection boards. Civil services boards. So with this particular law, you can say, because when Supreme Court gives a judgment, that becomes a law, and then now this is a new law where an officer cannot be shifted by any means unless it is compulsory before 2 years. So has this solved the problem? Or I should rather ask, will this solve the problem? I think a big no. Neither it has solved the problem, nor it is going to solve the problem. Though this law has come into existence after the Supreme Court judgment, but it has made no effect of any kind, unless for 2 weeks or 1 month, you could say. An officer tries to become an officer rather than being a servant of a politician just for a month at the max. And then again we see that an officer becomes the servant of the local politician. That's what my experience is. If you have another better experience, you can tell me. At the max, I guess you can tell the duration is more than 1 month. Some officer is working like an officer with his abilities, his powers, for at the max 1 year or something. But he is anyhow either shifted in the name of that promotion, or somehow he is transferred by routine ways to such a place that he will never courage to do something which is not as per or in line with the wishes of the local politician. So this particular law created by Supreme Court has not solved any problem, neither it is going to solve the problem, because the politicians have found their new way now to dominate these cadre officers. It is very important for the cadre officer to function independently, because if they are appointed to follow the rule of the nation, then why should they follow the illegal rules of the politicians? But that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen for certain reasons. What are the reasons, you would say? There are so many reasons, including that of the corruption. We are always blaming the politicians for the corruption, but we can see that in fact the whole bureaucracy is corrupt. Nearly. You can just have select few, the exceptions, but most of the bureaucrats are also very much corrupt. So if they are corrupt, then definitely they have to follow the orders of the local politicians. Why would they otherwise follow the orders of the politicians when there is no such a thing? Because in Supreme Court they have also given order that every order must be in written from the politician, obviously the government, the politician in the government, their boss, you could say. That if there is any written order, then and then only they have to follow. No oral order has to be followed. But still, we can still see that the officers are always saying, we have the orders from above. We have the pressure from above. What does that mean? Means there is an oral order, but still these bureaucrats are following those orders. For what? Because most of them are corrupt, and to keep doing that together with those politicians, they have to follow the orders or the illegal orders of the politicians. And that's why such a kind of laws won't be helpful, because if we don't have the non-corrupt bureaucrats, it would be very hard for such a kind of laws to even exist, unless on, or to say otherwise, on the paper. So they will exist only on the paper, but in real life, in fact, they will not be implemented effectively. So the functioning needs to be independent, but it is not independent. Rather, it is submissive. They are submitting themselves to the politicians, and just together they are, looting the nation this way or that way. This is what I think. To prevent the illegal transfer, Supreme Court has given the order that they must get the written order from the politicians, which they don't give because their order is illegal, and hence they don't give the written order. But even though Supreme Court has somehow helped these bureaucrats from getting illegal transfer, but the bureaucrats themselves doesn't seem to be ready because of the obvious reason that we have just discussed about. So this law cannot help us. They have nearly fixed the tenure of such a kind of cadre officer with 2 years without any problem. But still, the law still has so many loopholes, indirect loopholes, which cannot be removed, and that's why such a laws will always be useless, fruitless, you would say. As per this law, the officer can be transferred with the recommendation of the Civil Services Board. What if the Civil Services Board itself not effective, or you could say, corrupt, because they are also human beings, and the level of corruption in such a kind of post is too much enormous, and hence they are also susceptible to the corruption, and hence such kind of laws are not going to be useful. Corruption is not limited only to the political people, as we generally suppose, but the whole bureaucracy is nearly corrupt. Hardly one or two officers we find they are not corrupt, but most of them are corrupt. So if somebody is already corrupt, if somebody is doing the corruption, the person becomes mentally also corrupt. A mentally corrupt bureaucrat is going to do what? Of course, he is going to submit to the bigger corrupt person, the local politician, and together they are going to eat our hard money or our rights. And that's what is happening, and that's why, because of the corrupt politicians and the corrupt bureaucrats, the problem of the execution of the law of the land is not going to happen. In fact, the execution is in the hand of the bureaucrats, but they themselves are somehow corrupt, and they have to somehow follow the orders of the local politicians who bring some kind of force on them, pressure on them, by this way or that way, or by bribing them to give them bigger post or post at the right place. So somehow they bypass the law created by the Supreme Court. So even though the tenure of such a kind of officer, the cadre officer, has been fixed to 2 years, still it is 100% ineffective. That's what I think. You may disagree with me, you may have your own opinion. So tell me, what is your opinion? Thank you very much.